I want to talk today about our recent issue of What the Fuck is Going On with the Economy newsletter. This week we wrote about real estate and why today's recession isn't going to be like 2008, at least for the real estate market. So let's quickly go over why, right? I read a lot and talk to a lot of people about what's going on with the economy, and I try to listen, right? And a lot of what I'm hearing is this idea that people believe that we're going to have a big housing crash like we did 12 years ago. I don't think that's quite correct, and here's why. Back in 2008, the recession that we saw there, and one of the worst in modern history, came because the real estate market and the mortgage market was completely out of whack, right? Over the years building up to it, banks lent money like it was going out of style to people who were completely obsessed about buying as much real estate as possible, never mind that they couldn't afford it, right? So banks would just give money to people with ridiculous terms, and people just bought it up. And if that wasn't enough, banks would take all those mortgages, package them up in what's known as a mortgage-backed security, and sell them to investors. Anyways, come September 2008, the whole system fell on top of itself. Millions of people lost their homes. The housing market was in disarray around the world. And I think you know the rest of the story. Investors came and bought houses very, very cheaply, right? And things grew up until, pretty much 6 months ago, right? Well, here's why that thinking shouldn't be applied to this upcoming recession, right? So first, governments, right when they started the lockdowns, decided that they would, avert a catastrophe in the real estate market. They gave loan guarantees to people with mortgages, in some places to renters, and they've told banks, look, if you extend the mortgages by a couple months, equal to the amount of time we do this lockdown, we can help you out, right? So we want you to make sure you can extend those loans and not collapse the real estate market. Because if the real estate market collapses, the banks go with it. No one wants to bail out the banks again. It was bad enough 12 years ago. I don't think there's the political appetite for it right now. Second reason is that the banks, when they started lending money again after 2008, they were much more responsible about it, right? They weren't just giving out money to whoever asked for it. They started asking for capital up front, right? So instead of giving you 100% of the value of the home to buy it with a mortgage, they'll be like, okay, well, if you come with 20% of the cash, we'll give you the rest, the 80% rest. So they've been doing responsible practices like that for about 10 years now, and it's really reduced the risk in the market, right? So people who've borrowed money have more of a chance of paying it back, and the banks didn't have to lend as much before. So we won't see as many people getting evicted as we did 12 years ago, which would mean there won't be as much property back on the market. And finally, just one little macroeconomic thing to think about is that the central banks, the guys who control interest rates, that set mortgage rates, they're not afraid to cut rates low, right? They've shown many times that they're willing to go under zero. They could keep going under zero. And when that happens, when mortgage rates go down, real estate prices go up. Reasoning for that is if I have more money that I can borrow for cheaper, sellers say, to buy a place, sellers say, oh, well, I'll just raise the price, right? And it's not to say prices aren't going to go down, but because that mechanism will come into play, it slows down the fall of real estate, and it could be that it catches a point where the economy picks up again and the prices go back up, or at least stabilize. So yeah, with those points, that's kind of the idea of, what we need to think about when we start looking at the real estate market as the recession starts to hit and the economy comes back to whatever new life is going to be. But it's important to keep that in mind, right? You don't want to go into this recession, completely measuring it versus the last one, because I think you're going to get, disappointed, or at least, you'll have mixed expectations. Anyways, that's kind of it. You can read more in the newsletter. I put a link to it below. And, feel free to subscribe to it. We send it every Tuesday. From what I've read, it's getting a lot of buzz in the expat communities, especially among those people who read newsletters about economics for expats. So I hope you liked it. Feel free to subscribe, and see you later.